I know you can't let it drive you down.
The cord's not long enough for that.
No idea. Good morning. That was valid. I had no idea. Oh, okay. It's almost like we're our own little biosphere.
Just a little announcement.
8 miles.
For those who are hungry, I brought back some fruit from yesterday.
What did you bring?
The hungry soup, the hungry soul.
What did you bring?
Some fruit you can serve yourself, what I had brought from that I took from yesterday and I brought it back again.
Okay.
So if you're hungry, there is some fruit.
They made an effort, not putting both on their kids.
Oh.
They do come for.
Oh, you said it.
I haven't gotten this where I can.
And not that it doesn't have stability.
I did. Yeah.
And then just like
It's like,
that's about the time I saw your, I think I saw about appearance in your.
Okay.
Like that. I felt so bad, I don't remember. Like a band, like, but I did, I
In any sequence.
They're well. Yeah.
It'll be so obvious that they're
Disney, you got a button for me? Hey, Disney, you got a button for me? They're in the room? No, that's okay. I'll get
Okay, everyone, let's get focused. This is like one of these weird things where we're all trying to create something to manifest in the central circle.
You need a gavel.
Oh, I hold my whistle. Everyone, good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Who's that guy then? No, that can't be school.
Thank you for being here so relatively early and focused and eager and waiting for something to happen here. We're going to try and live up to expectations. Two people who I want to welcome into the group. I want to welcome Bibby. Bibby, just raise your hand. This is Bibby. And Bibby is easy to remember because she's called Bibby, and that's that's all. Everybody knows who's Bibby. It's the Bibby blog. It's the Bibby. It's your username. This is Bibby. Okay, and in the red shirt there, in the red corner, we have Axeman without his guitar, who is Warren. And thank you both for making the effort to be here. There are who's not here today? Ken Forrest Dennison. He had to leave us last night. He had to drag himself away because he wanted to stay and he could not. And I want to make sure I don't kind of miss anybody. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, Marie said she'll be back.
Oh.
She's just packing up.
Right now. Okay, good. And I don't think there's anybody else. I think that kind of covers the whole family. Is there anyone whose name I should be talking about in Hannah?
It's two.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, that's good. So, what we discovered, and I kind of mentioned this before, what we discovered yesterday is all you really got to do is get these people in a room together, and it doesn't matter what we do, because everyone's just gonna, there's so much energy created. And it's so interesting seeing people in person. It makes it all multidimensional. It's fascinating already. And what, I think I've made this clear and said this to a lot of people I've been speaking to, but it is crystal clear to me that we need to do this again. It is so obvious. We will. I've already decided there's going to be some kind of, I mean, not quite sure what form it's going to take, but there's no reason at all why we can't recreate this in different parts of North America. Maybe even elsewhere, for goodness sake, but I need to think about that one too. So I want to do this in Canada, I want to do this in the Northwest, I want to do this in California, I want to do this in Texas, I want to do this in New England, and anywhere else where I haven't thought of. Nice to do it in the Caribbean, I have to say. That'd be cool.
Not a bad spot for that.
You can go to your place and ride your horses.
Yeah.
I got enough.
How about Playa del Carmen?
So this is interesting here because we're kind of creating something that I would like to continue in some form, and I'm only mentioning that just to let you know that this is in my mind, and I bet it's in yours as well. And some of you may even have had a moment to check in back home, as it were, based on Project Avalon, and we've got a lot of people who are following. I mean, they're listening to you every word. You better be careful what you say. But people back there are taking notes, you know, and screenshots and things. So,
Did you get any feedback from people on Avalon? I mean,
people are excited, people are tuned in, people wish they were here. They are vicariously as fascinated as you are to put faces to these one-dimensional names. And they're getting a lot out of that already. That's all I know.
Okay.
I really don't know more than that. What I would love you to do, as an invitation and a reminder, is when you all get back to base, just please share your experiences. And please share your experiences, I mean, I hardly need to say this, in an inclusive way. Bring them in, saying, look, we wish you were here. You know, this is the best substitute for you not being here, is just for us to tell you what it was like, and we hope you can be here next time. Just bring it all in, you know. And we'll see what energy we can build here. Don't let anyone feel like Cinderella left out of this. We want to, you know, we are part of a big family, and this is just the start of something that I'd like to be larger. Okay.
Excuse me, Bill, I have a question. So is it members only that are viewing, or it's like the whole world that can log on to it?
That's a very good question, isn't it? Well, I mean,
I would say right now it's been only members that are viewing it, but it is public. You can make it available.
It's on YouTube, right? It was live streamed yesterday, wasn't it?
well,
Yeah, but we only had about 30
What-
viewers.
okay.
I'm assuming it was on Project Avalon.
We had more viewers than we had attendees.
A little bit more, yeah.
Let me answer that in the wider context. This is something that I think most of you know. Sometimes it feels like Avalon is a small group, you know, but we always have, I mean, we track this kind of stuff behind the scenes with the moderators. We can see who's viewing the forum. There are usually 10 to 15 times as many visitors as logged in members. And I regularly get emails from people, who say, you know, I've been checking into Avalon every day, I'm just not a member. You know, I just read everything that I can. There are a lot of people who do that, People, I mean, in this world we're in these days, there are a lot of people who don't really like to kind of join up and sign up and give their birthday and all that. I mean, I don't like to do that. So I understand that. But we've got a lot of people who follow us everywhere we go. There are a lot of people who know all you guys and you don't know them. You know, Jack's a bit like that. Okay. I mean, he was a member, but apart from that, he was completely invisible. We didn't know who he was. You know, he was there. And there are a lot of other people who haven't even signed up with it. So that's a complicated way of saying that there will be people who are not members, we don't know who they are, and they're going to be as interested as this as poor old Dave in Toronto.
No pressure.
And it's just another way of saying, here we are, you know. And I mean, I don't want this to be all about Project Avalon, but I hear from a lot of people. This last week at the UFO conference, the main conference, I had people coming up to me who I'd never even heard of, who said, look, you know, I've been following every word that you've been saying for years. And it's like, wow, I didn't know that. I mean, they're in the shadows, and that's kind of cool. Not just because it's about me, but it's about you too, because we're all adding value here together, all in our different ways. We're all specialists in different things. We're sharing our experiences like we were yesterday around the circle. And that matters, you know, that matters to people. And the reputation that we seem to have as a group out there is that we're trustworthy, what we say needs to be heard, because we're saying something valuable, both spiritually and in terms of sharing what we believe is hard data. That's out there, you know, that's out there, and all of you are contributing to that. So this is an important thing we're doing together. And again, that's a complicated way of answering your question about is this for everyone? I kind of think it's for everyone, in a way. I mean, it should be open for everyone to see. We're not trying to make this some secret society thing. That's never the idea. Never the idea. Okay, so this is what we're going to do today, I think. When I say I think, it's because it's all unscripted. I've got total confidence that today will work out in the way it's meant to work out. But we're going to start with Elizabeth. This is whose username is We Are One. Interestingly enough, I mean, she's going to start just with something that she has, and we need to inject it in somewhere just because it's interesting. It's not really a segue, it's just, well, I guess it's a kind of segue between some of the things we were talking about yesterday and wherever we go today. But she's going to tell us about her experience visiting Pete Peterson's house. It's just interesting because she was there, she's got the photographs, and she can tell her story, and it's her story to tell. But then, simply because she's got the talking stick, then she's going to talk about something completely different, which is going to be very, very interesting for us, and which is going to open up a big conversation. And what she's going to talk about is she's going to talk about some of her personal journey, exploring what she believes her past lives and past identities have been, how she got to that place, the significance of it for her, what it means in terms of where she's standing now, moving forwards. Joining the dots. Yesterday we talked a lot about connecting jigsaw puzzle pieces together to form a big picture. We're also trying to do this for ourselves. Nothing to do with UFOs and weird things. It's like, how did we get to this place, and who were we, and who am I, and what is it to be me looking out at the world behind these eyes? These are important questions. And everyone I know is on that kind of journey. They're somewhere on that journey. Many people in this room will have been on that journey for a while. And so there's an important discussion to be had. There are important experiences to share about what we are able to figure out about who we were, where we've come from, what it all means, how it fits together, how this process works, what are the principles involved, and how do we access this information? How do we find out this information? What do we do with it when we've got it? These are big, big, big questions. A lot of people are interested in that. Some people are confused about that, and it's understandable because it's confusing. Between us here, we think we've got some answers that may be helpful, between us all. And so that's where I think today is going to go. I think it's going to go into that area. One thing which I had mentioned earlier, as I think most of you know, is I had offered to do a live regression in front of some willing guinea pig to show how it...
Just step this way, just Just take a step just
Me?
out of the frame, yeah.
Oh,
There you
okay,
go.
I didn't realize I was talking to the camera. Thank you. I was talking to you. The camera, thank you.
There's 4 people there.
And so
I can-
I had thought that, okay, sure, I mean, I can do this stuff. I've been doing regressions for a while. It's a lot easier to do than anyone might think. It's very simple. There are principles involved, and a lot of it is connected not with what you do, but what you don't do, which is, these are things that we can and talk about. But I've been kind of let off that hook a little bit, because in the room here we've got Jim Newell. For those people who don't know Jim, Vivi and Warren, this is Jim. And Jim's been doing this for longer than me. He has got some processes that he would like to share with the group. I don't know what they are. I know Jim well enough to know that anything that he says he'd like to do or show, it's like a show and tell thing, is definitely going to be well worthwhile. And he has, well, actually, I shouldn't even talk on your behalf, Jim. Can you say what it is that you would like to do, what you have available to offer and share?
Well, I'm going to do some little introductory group exercises, 2 different ones. And they won't take that long, but you guys will know something happened, let's just put it that way. And I might even talk about some basics of spirituality, a little bit, not much, but if anything I talk about, I'm probably going to allow demonstration, and you guys will actually be able to experience whatever I talk about. So that's what we're going to do.
Good. And you told me just a few minutes ago that you would be willing to do a regression yourself.
Oh,
You're
sure,
able
maybe
to.
after lunch, sure,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Whoever would
Yeah.
want. If anyone's had a little attention on a past life or something, we could touch it up a little bit.
You already have a volunteer.
Okay.
and I'm just.
I brought what they call an electronic electropsychometer, which is kind of called an e-meter, but it actually assists. And this is, you say one of the funny things about, now that I'm out of the big organization, we're actually higher than those guys. We actually got more technology, and we can actually counsel all over the planet from any place, and it's really amazing. And we can probably hook up this computer, and you guys will actually be able to see a meter. It'll should be interesting.
How it works, how to use it. It's just basically a sophisticated pendulum. That's really all it is. It's just like an assistance to guide the person where they're going, the questions they're asking. That's it. But now we're putting the cart before the horse. It's just that this is a little bit what may be in store for us today. I think it's very, very interesting. The only reason I'm passing the buck to Jim here is he's better at it than I am. I can do this stuff, but he can work magic. Okay. Now, I want to hand the talking stick back to Elizabeth. This is her show this morning, and I'm going to step way out of it and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you want to do today, and it's all yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait, before we get, there's a little bit too much light, I think, to see the screen. Yeah.
Let's adjust the light.
I didn't want to put everybody to sleep. You know, you turn the lights down and it's like.
That light goes down and my eyes go up.
Right.
I know.
Well, I have lots of pictures, so I'm gonna try to make it interesting so you guys will.
It's
Be
still
engaged.
hard to see, I mean,
It might be
Maybe
better
just
to have
take
those
one
strong
off.
than these on.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are distracting to me personally, but it's not about me.
How's
That's
that?
good, yeah, that's good.
That's better.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna start to go over the little bit of the Pete Peterson. I had some photos, and I know Bill was recording yesterday, so we didn't put them in, but I thought I could just do them at the beginning of the presentation. And then, like Bill said, I'm so excited to be able to share my reincarnation journey, because as you guys know, on a forum format, it's impossible, some of these stories, you know, everybody's attention span, there's so much going on there. You just can't sit there all day long. But then what you run into as a researcher is, because you're trying to be brief, people will go, whatever, she's not giving me any proof. Well, if I gave you the proof that I had, you'd be reading the novel. And who wants to do that? So it's very challenging. So I jumped on the opportunity to share the story. And I really want people to know when you get into reincarnation, because this is I think what I would call a programmed misconception. It's not about who I was that's important. When I started digging into this and going through all the identities, I didn't just stop at one, I went through several. And as you go through this journey, you discover who you've been, well, you start figuring everybody else out. And within that pattern, you see other patterns. And what I was seeing, and why I kept going, is I could see there was a story within the story within the story, and stuff that most people don't have the opportunity to see. So they don't get the value because they haven't done it yet. They might get one identity or they get a partial identity, and they just haven't gone far enough to see what I was seeing. So my point in sharing with you is being able to have more time, show pictures, and you can kind of see why I'm so fascinated by it. Because as I started digging, I could see it wasn't just my story, it's our story, because it's a small piece of the puzzle to the bigger story based on what I was pulling up. So it's the implications, it's not who I was. I'm not walking around saying, I'm this person, I'm that person. I didn't just believe what I was told, I actually researched it. And there's specific things you can look for when you're given an identity. There's markers that you can see. And that's how I was able to identify the patterns. And that's why I'm so passionate. And you'll probably see me in the future either becoming more public with this and helping others. Because my research partner and I would like to help people go through the process if they're interested, help document stories. And we've done so much work over the past few years that we've known each other that we'll probably submit it to the Library of Congress, because it would be a shame to lose all of that, and we want somebody somewhere to have the documentation of it. And I'm really hoping at some point, everybody's gonna know who everybody is at some point. As the consciousness gains, I'm hoping that, but the key point, it's not about who we were that's important, it's what it could imply, because it gives you pieces of the story, like Bill was saying, as to why we're here. And that's why I wanna share this with you, so. And you'll see that as I go through the story. But the Pete Peterson photos, so, how this came about is when we found out where Pete lived, and it wasn't super far from where I was at, I thought, heck, I can just jump in the car and go check it out. And of course, timing couldn't be worse. I had family at my house for 2 weeks, and we were going to a family wedding from there, and then we were coming back, and then I was going to Scotland for a couple weeks. And so literally it was like, I grabbed my mother-in-law and said, get in the car, come do this with me, right? And she's so funny. I wish you could meet her. I love her. She's, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, she's very ingrained into the 3D lifestyle, which is fine. She's very happy, does very well. So all this stuff, you can imagine what I was telling her in the car for the hour and a half that it took to get there. Her eyes were like, because she doesn't know anything about this. But she's the perfect person to bring to something like this, because she brings that innocence into it. And so I can just stand there and let the conversation happen, and she can just take over, and it's perfect because I don't have to do anything or reveal who I am, and it just worked. So it was very fun. So I'm telling her the backstory as we're going up. So when we pulled up, what you're seeing here is, so let's start at the picture. You can kind of see that metal fence. I kind of wish I would have taken a little bit better pictures, but I didn't want to be super obvious what we were doing. And because I didn't know what I was coming up on, to be honest, because you can't see. It's at the end of a road, about, I don't know, a 2-mile road maybe, and it's gated, it's closed. You can see the address there, which that's not even the right address. He's got some numbers peeled off. So it's a locked gate, and you're like, well, do we walk up there? And one of the neighbors was out immediately, like, what are you doing? And I felt really bad because I thought it was the house to the left of him, and I'm like, click, 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 before somebody could tell me I couldn't do that, right? And it wasn't even the right house. So when the neighbor came out and talked to us and said that house, because I didn't see the tag immediately, then what we did is we went on the other side of the fence, which you can see where the truck is. That's like, well, you can see the truck in the top left picture. The house is behind the trees. That was kind of the view that we were seeing when we came up. And whoever was there was 2 people at the house. They saw us, and we just waited for them to come down because I didn't know the situation or what I was walking into, and it's private property and it's gated, and you want to be respectful. So we just took a couple pictures, and then as they came out, I thought, oh, this is gonna be good, because they're wearing hazmat masks. And you're thinking, oh my God, what's going on in there, right? And these big trailers that you see here were full of crap. I mean, just like packed. And I knew this because as he was coming back and telling the story, you can see the couple right there. He was explaining that they hadn't even gone through those 2 trailers. I don't know if you knew this, but Pete had some businesses, I guess, and so that's what was in some of those trailers, office stuff, things when he originally started his business. I don't know if it was in Arizona or if it was here, I can't remember where. So the couple came up, and it was great because my mother-in-law went into 3D mode and asked all the right questions, and I just kind of sat there and let the conversation flow, and the guy was very chatty and just started telling us everything, and I'm like, this is too easy. I mean, I didn't even have to prompt him, and so he started talking about what was going on in the house, and you know, they got the hazmat things hanging from their necks, and you know, I'd asked, of course, well, hey, can we go check it out? You know, I was playing innocent, like, well, you know, we're looking for property and we kind of want to see what's out here. And somebody told us this was foreclosing. And what we were looking for, as the story goes, is, you know, there were sheriffs, you know, with guns, and there was a bulldozer out there shoveling all this stuff and wrecking the house. And, you know, it's the government and yada, yada, what do they call them? The Dark Alliance or whatever.
And the whole place was surrounded by people with
Right.
guns and.
Right.
This was
So
David Wilcox's
right.
story, yeah.
And I think how it started is they started a GoFundMe page for this guy, for Pete. And, you know, and the reason why it's so troublesome, as you'll see, is they're exploiting this guy. And it's not even a true story. And so he's collecting funds for this, off of this lie. And that's why I went up there, because I wanted to see for it myself. I really like Dave Wilcox's work. I like his scientific work, because I don't have time to walk the halls of science. I just don't. And so when you read some of his first books, you're like, oh my God, there's so many scientific footnotes on here. You know, this is great. So this is very confusing for some of us that have looked at his research work. We're like, what is this guy doing with these clowns? Why is he having to embellish everything when he's got some beautiful pieces? So anyways, so when we went up there and they started telling us, you know, how bad it was inside, my jaw just dropped, because then it becomes more of a compassionate story, because you realize this guy's being exploited, and there's obviously something mentally wrong. You know, that he told us he was a hoarder. He told us there were 6 dead cats so far in the house. I mean, that wasn't even necessarily the final count. There was cat feces all over the house, which means there's probably cat urine all over the house. There were dead mice everywhere. There were mice jumping out of boxes. I mean, it was out of control. Jars of urine everywhere. I mean, this is not like a normal pack rat case. This is somebody with a severe problem. And so basically, you know, you're sitting there thinking, well, this is just, the credibility is going to go out the window now with him, because this is not somebody of a normal state of mind. And that was the point. I couldn't get any further to the house, and I didn't want to press it because I want to be respectful and I'm not wanting to draw attention. And I have my mother-in-law with me, and I'm kind of involving her in something that she doesn't really know what she's getting into. And I'm okay with it with me, but when I'm bringing other people, you know, I have to be careful. So I can't be as aggressive as I probably, and I don't mean in a violent way, but just aggressive as far as pushing for pictures and things like that. I was just trying to get as much information as I could. And so, of course, you know, once they told us all this, as soon as they turned around, me and my mother-in-law were like, click, 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 you know, taking all these pictures. And so that's what we got him walking back. We got the trailers. And the guy specifically said to me, he thought it was going to take 20 of those trailers to clear all the stuff away. Okay, and that's not counting the 2 or 3 that were already on the property. And, you know, he said, the guy, oh, this guy's into aliens and stuff, and which I don't find is creepy, because we're all into that topic. So that didn't bother me, but to them it's like conspiracy, yada, yada. And so I just saw it as a really sad case. And so I do feel very bad for Pete Peterson, but I think it was important to go over there and explore. And so if you ever get the opportunity to do something like that, if you're in an area where something's going on, go look. Because these guys, I mean, enough is enough, you know, with the lies and the embellishment. And I think that's where we're all getting to. We're sick of the stories. We want the real deal. I don't care if somebody's wrong about a story or if they're interpreting it wrong, but when they're blatantly embellishing and making things up, it's a problem, you know, and that's how I look at it as a researcher. So I went back before I came here, and they have pictures online of the house. I'm trying to remember if I got, yeah, I did. So you can see the inside. Now, I couldn't get these when I was there. And you can tell from that front picture, the picture on the right, top right, they have cleared out, see how it has all the bushes up there, the trees covering the house? They've obviously cleared that out when they got the house ready for resale. It was a foreclosed property. And we did have somebody go in, you know, I pulled up the Idaho repository and then passed it on to somebody else who has more of a legal background. And they started looking into the documentation and paperwork, and they could see it was a normal foreclosure. And I can't remember the terminology, but I think they had like 5 warnings or 5 notifications to go in and get your things out of the house. I mean, like, he left the truck there, as you saw in that photo beforehand. You know, I don't know, maybe there was engine problems or whatever, and it wasn't worth his time, but I'm like, wow, this truck right here. And the photos were pulled from Google Earth, I believe, right, Bill?
I looked on Google Earth, yeah.
Yeah, and the truck in the Google Earth picture was in the same spot.
In the same place.
And we're like, oh my God, how long has that been sitting there? So somebody hadn't been at the house for several months. I mean, of course, because he locked the cats in the house. So, and then never came back. So I'm not sure what was going on, if he was having health problems. And again, I'm not making fun of Pete. I wish him all the best. I feel very sad for him. And this is not about being vindictive. It's about getting to the truth. So these were some of the pictures of the house after it's been cleaned out. I don't know what all these burn marks. I don't remember if they were the original owners of the house when we were looking at all the court documents. I'm not sure if that was revealed. So we were doing our due diligence, and that's the point of what we're saying. You can pull things up in some states, and they're called a repository. So you can go in and you can kind of see what's going on legally. And the person that looked at it didn't see anything out of the ordinary that would suggest that there's some, you know, government takeover of the Dark Alliance or whatever. Not that there would be, but there might be a red flag here or there, and somebody who has a legal background could probably see that, and we just weren't seeing it. So it just was a simple foreclosure, no Dark Alliance involvement from what we could see, and then the house, you know, eventually went up for resale, and all is well
Can I
down that
clarify
street.
this one thing here? It's an important little footnote to what Elizabeth is saying. It wasn't David Wilcock who was doing the embellishment. It was Pete Peterson who was selling this incredible, fantastic, paranoid, exaggerated, fantastical story to David Wilcock, who never checked a thing. You see, that's the connection there. It was
But David posted on the GoFundMe page. I
Oh,
think he was the
yeah.
one that posted that
Yeah,
there
yeah.
were guns and and all that
Well,
stuff.
yes, but Pete Peterson had told him that.
Oh,
You
okay,
see,
okay. I didn't
all
understand.
of that came from Pete Peterson with this fantastical story about, you know, I'm surrounded by guns. They're taking all my stuff. They're burying all my $1 million laboratory equipment in a big pit with a bulldozer. You know, and he was a hoarder who was just hoarding junk. And none of this was real. This is the important thing that connects us back to Pete Peterson's original testimony that it seems cannot be counted upon at all. And the David Wilcock bit is that then David took all that at face value without checking a thing. And what we see from Elizabeth here is how easy it is to check. You just go there, and as she said, just talk to the people, and I mean, you didn't even have to
I
be
didn't
an
have to ask
investigator.
anything.
You just had
The
to be a
guy
human
just
being
went,
with
no,
ears.
and I'm like,
You know?
great. So it was so easy.
And how easy was that for someone to do? And so this is a bit of a morality tale, because then you think of other people who maybe should remain unnamed here, who are also saying fantastical things, and then other people, not necessarily David Wilcock, but including David Wilcock, then take that at face value, and then all of that becomes part of the internet mythology, and none of it may be true. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but at least check it out. You see, this is the big point here that I see here.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And Avalon has such a great position because, gosh, look at where we all come from. I mean, we've got somebody all over the world that if they're close enough, they can, I mean, we're all researchers to some extent, so you can help participate with that truth by, you know, if you're in an area where you're by where something's going on, go check it out for all of us. And I think that's what makes Avalon so significant, is we have something that a lot of people don't have the resources to do. You know, if you work in a news media, they have, you know, millions of dollars to work with, and they can fabricate whatever they want, and there's no accountability. So that's what I think is so great about Avalon, where we can help with getting to the truth, is calling these people out.
Yeah.
So.
And And there's this weird thing that started to happen in the last 10, 15 years, people now think that research is looking things up on Google. Okay. It's not. Of course, that's one of the resources you've got. But how about the libraries? How about legal court records? Which aren't necessarily so easily available on the internet. You've got to know how to look for that stuff. There are human beings who you can talk to, and then this is like people, and you can get in your car and go somewhere. People tend not to do that anymore. People sit in their rooms, or stare at their phones and think they're doing research. That's a tiny part of it. It's a valid part of it, but it's a tiny part of it.
Yeah, and you can't wait for somebody else to do it for you. You have to get out there and do it. That's what I love about Avalon, because I like listening to other people's stories, and because it kind of almost helps you connect the dots faster, because you get different perspectives, and even deeper than that, you get people's perspectives from other countries, you know, and that really is just, gosh, that just opens the door up even more to getting a closer idea as to what's going on. So anyways, okay, so that's the Pete Peterson story.
Sorry, when was this?
I'm sorry. So this was summer of 2017.
Okay.
So I think I was there around August.
July.
Yeah.
August, right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of that wedding when I went to, and it was like end of August, so it would have been like the week before end of August. So, and they were still in the foreclosure process. You know, they hadn't completed, because they couldn't turn around and sell the house. And I kept trying to call the dang realtor. I think some of us did. I couldn't get her on the phone. And I've been a realtor, so I'm like, these damn realtors, they don't want to answer their phone. Because you know, what they do is they field their calls, and they can kind of tell, you know, when somebody's, you know, just fishing around just for, it's not going to generate dollars. So this gal wasn't really, and several of us tried calling her, and she wasn't returning our call. So I would have tried to get more information, but I had stuff going on myself and couldn't really follow through more. But I felt like we had gotten enough that there was no point in pursuing it anymore. Okay. And forgive me, because I'm on somebody else's computer and my view is a little bit different. And I've never presented before, so it might be a little bit choppy here.
Was his address known?
Oh, you could Google it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. We had a rough idea, and that area that he was in, it's pretty rural. And he was also into, what's it called when you're you get a lot of them in Idaho, because it's an ideal. Yes, thank you. Yeah, he was very into that. So that was one of his reasons to go into that area. It's pretty small, it's tucked away. It's kind of a banana belt over in that area. I mean, they still get snow and stuff, but it's very rural. Everybody knows everybody. And so I think that's why he was up there. That was kind of the gist of what I was getting. Let's see here, what did I want to start with? I kind of wanted to start with an opening statement here, and I think this is it. Yes, I hope you don't mind, I took the top of your,
Of course.
I'm not selling it, I promise, capitalizing off of it. Can you guys see that phrase? Is this in the way? Can you see it okay? I'm going to read it so in case that they can't see at home. I had a fellow Avalonian share this with me not too long ago, and I was so excited because it was Valerie, and God, Valerie, thank you so much, because this was exactly encompassing all the reasons. And let's see, I don't want to don't touch it. I do want to close that. But I do want to just throw Kevin's bio up really quick. Ugh, that's what I was afraid of. Okay, how do I zoom this? Right there. This, okay. Oh, perfect.
Now center it.
How do you set?
Probably there's this on the right. It's mouse on the right. There's probably a scroll bar.
Oh,
Maybe click this.
oh, I guess it doesn't when you zoom it up. It just. Oh, what'd you do? Press the arrow? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, I know you guys can't read all this, but this was pulled from his website. And I want to show this because this isn't some guy reading a ball down at Venice Beach in a tent. Okay, this guy, he's trained out of Stanford Research Institute, SRI. And if anybody knows who that is, I mean, this is where the remote viewing came from. This is where Hal Puthoff, which, yeah, trust me, I was like, SRI. what's this guy up to? Is this devious? Is this, so trust me, I understand that, and I looked into that, but I've also gone and experienced them, and I've never gotten anything devious. And some people might say, well, he's going to tell you whatever you want to believe because you're paying him $275. I hear that all the time. And I'm like, trust me, just go experience it, because I'm not gaining anything from this. I'm not selling anything. You can tell it's right because when you're given the identities and you go research them, which is why you focused on documented past lives, because I wanted it to be believable. And I wanted to see, do I have the markers of what they're telling me? I don't walk around and go, I'm this person, I'm that person, and then just end right there. I want to see the proof. So there are things that you can look for that start making it real. Once you feel comfortable, and as you do the research, you'll see the people next to you are matching in the same way to that lifetime. And that even makes it more real, because statistically you're going, what are the odds that all these people are matching to? Honestly, there's no effing way. There is no way that all these people could be matching in the same manner, markers, etc., facial features. There's no way. So I don't get anything nefarious out of this. And I think probably Bill knows me enough that I have spiny suspicions that I would pick it up if there was something, and I would tell you, like, ugh, I'm not really sure about this one, So I tout about him. Kevin is, he's been around a long time. He's very well known in the field. I wanted to do this quote that came off of SEMQ, and he was talking about another researcher. William Kotz received a doctorate in science at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He then worked at the Stanford Research Institute, I think it's Stanford Research International now, as a staff scientist for a period of 35 years. He is also founder of the Center for Applied Intuition, where he has had the opportunity to extensively study trans-medium Kevin Ryerson. Through this experience, he determined that the information derived through Kevin has a very high degree of accuracy. Similarly, I've worked with Kevin Ryerson since 2001, and I have also found that the information gained through Kevin, particularly in the area of past life research, has been highly accurate. Based on Dr. Kotz's positive experiences with Kevin, he decided to write a book on Jesus, utilizing information gained through Ryerson's spirit guide, John. So Kevin channels like 2 or 3 different people. One of them is Apostle John, and that's how he describes himself as being. And I think I remember reading that Atun Ray was actually the spirit guide for Jesus during his time of the crucifixion, which I think is very interesting. So if you look at the TV shows, I think you can see film. Let me go up here. Kevin, you'll see him talked about, American actress Shirley MacLaine talks about Kevin, raves about Kevin. She's done 3 books with him. I think he was in her movie Out on a Limb, and he's been on CNN, Oprah, Good Morning America, Merv Griffin, People Are Talking, Northwest Afternoon. I don't even think this has been updated, quite honestly, because there were some things where I'm like, why isn't that on your... I think you get the point. It's not that you have to have a PhD in what Kevin's background is. I'm just showing you this so you can see that this guy's not messing around, and so there's a lot of credibility. But you'll also see when I go through this process how to tell if you're with somebody good or not. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to... There were some other things I was going to explain, but I think it just gets too time consuming, and if we want to go back, we can revisit. So my first significant past life memory that I was aware of, I was having them as a little girl, I just wasn't aware, is this would have been around 2005, and we were on a trip in Boston. My twin flame lived over there. He's my oldest family friend. And he goes, oh, you guys got to go check out Newport Mansions. And we had just bought a house, and I wasn't liking any of the decorating stuff. I'm like, nothing, this is just not rubbing me right. What am I missing? And I was telling him I was starting to look at old world stuff and really like it. And he goes, you got to go to Newport Mansion. He goes, it's phenomenal. So I just put a little quick picture compilation. And I have a book here. What did I do with my books? Oh. If anybody's interested later on, I did bring my big book of Newport Mansions if you want to flip through. This is the most incredible display of wealth. Gosh, there must be like 15, 20 houses. These were vacation homes in the late 1800s. As you can see, gold, gilded ceilings, 24 karat, no expenses spared. it's like a museum of just these amazing artwork pieces. And I couldn't get enough of it. And of course, to my husband's horror, because I'm like, I want that in my house, and I want that in my house. And he's like, keep dreaming. So walking through this triggered a memory. And as I was walking through, I was coming down the staircase. I think it might have been Marble House. I don't know if I have a picture. It doesn't matter. You get the idea. And all of a sudden, as I was walking through, I heard the word Renaissance. And the feeling I got was that I had something to do with the Renaissance. Like, I was so sure. And I went, oh my God, am I having a past life memory? Where's that coming from? And as you'll find soon enough, it was tied to a past life, and it was the whole atmosphere that I was taking in that was triggering the memory. And as you'll see, one of my identities is Mary Queen of Scots. And so I included the two pictures. This is the marble house on the left bottom here with the fencing. And though it's not exact as the Holyrood house, which is in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is one of the homes I lived in, but you can kind of see the similarities. And I just put those two pictures there so you could see how that could just trigger a memory like that, because it's so similar. Not exact, but you get the idea. So growing up in France for the first half of my life, I was exposed to homes like this. So I very clearly remember gold. I remember pictures on the walls being hung up. That was one of my favorite things, is walking through and seeing the family history on the walls. So anything like that, when you're walking in a certain environment, pay attention to how you feel and what you navigate to, because these are all clues as to who you were. You're going to navigate to things that are comfortable. And I like to explain that because people automatically assume, well, you know, I don't know, you're a brat because you lived in all this and you want to show off, and it's like, no, this is what I'm comfortable in, this is what I'm remembering. The next incarnation, none of this could matter to me because I'm onto a different role. This lifetime for me, I know, is paralleling that lifetime, and that's why I'm remembering it the most, and that's probably why I talk about it more, and that's why I want to show you, because, like I said, in my story, you will see your own once you know what to look for. So, let me see what the next, where we go from here. Okay. So I was having this memory in 2005, didn't pursue it until I started thinking about the summer of 10. And summer of 10 was big for me in waking up consciously quite a bit. I originally thought I was Elizabeth I because so many things were matching. As you know, my birth name is Elizabeth Marie. And when you do reincarnation, what you learn from looking at other cases is you are looking for markers. Are dates matching? Are names matching? Are there parallels? I've even found a similar gift being given to me by the same person that was given to me as Mary Stuart. Pay attention to everything, because and document it. You never know when that's a little fine detail that's going to match, because you're looking to you're validating is what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this real. And so I knew the markers to look for. And when I had my first reading with Kevin, the first thing out of his mouth, oh my God, this just blew me away, because he doesn't know my story about the Newport Mansions. So the first thing out of Atun Ray's mouth was, you are a person of Renaissance, you typically incarnate during Renaissance period, and then he gave me the identity. And the thing that struck me is, well, what was the word that I was remembering as I was walking through the Newport Mansions? Renaissance. Well, I don't know how many words are in the English language, but there's no way in heck that guy could have known that I was having that memory, that particular word. And that said two things to me. Number one, this guy knows what he's doing. Number two, I think I'm reading the field myself. That's what was happening. That's where the memory was coming back from. And so that's what made me perk up and go, God, why am I not recording this? You know? So anyways, he confirmed the identity. He gave me the name. And like I said, don't just believe what you're told, go research it. And that's what you'll learn how to do. So I started reading everything about her, started seeing the matches. And one thing led to another. I ended up on a past life forum. That's where I met my twin soul, James. One of his incarnations is Francis II. That was my first husband, is Mary Stuart. I'll show you some pictures of that so you can see really quick later. But we got in touch, and we both became interested in past life researcher Paul Von Ward, who has passed away now. And we decided to go meet him at his house in Georgia. And my research partner lived in North Carolina. So I flew into North Carolina, and we took the drive to meet Paul. And the reason why we were going to Paul is because Paul worked on biometrics. And that's kind of where we wanted to take our research. Let's prove it scientifically, and biometrics is a science. They do specific measurements of your face. You're seeing it in airport securities now. I don't know if some of you guys went through any kind of biometrics. It's not everywhere yet, but it's coming. And the reason why they use it, because it's accurate. So if you can do biometrics on past lives, it's gonna, for the real skeptics, that's where it's at. So you can't do every identity. It becomes more challenging the further back you go, because the paintings aren't necessarily accurate, though they do try to do some dimensional measurements in the paintings, but for measurement's sake, it's harder. For me, my saving grace was the death mask. And Mary Stuart has 3 death masks. However, I think this one at Lenox Love House is the authentic death mask, because when my face was measured with this death mask, we got an exact match on the lower half of my face. And when they do this type of death mask, some are plaster, this one's actually wax. So you can imagine how gross, if you guys all know the story, Mary Stuart, her head was cut off, and they poured hot wax over her face, and that's how they got the mold. It's at Lenox Love House in Scotland with the Hamilton family. They had an association to Mary back in that time, so that's how they ended up with it. I don't know the details of it, but there are a couple other masks, and when you look at them, you can see there's a difference. And at some point, when I have the proper software, they're gonna get so pissed at me. I'm gonna show how those 2 masks aren't real, because they're capitalizing off of something I think that isn't real. I think she only has 1 death mask, and I think one of the death masks, I believe, is actress Katharine Hepburn, because it looks more like the shape of her face, and she played the Mary Stuart role. I think they took a plaster of her mask, and then they painted it, and then they use it at one of the museums or something, like, look, it's Mary Stuart's death mask. And then there's another one which they took off of her coffin, because it looks exactly like what was done in her coffin. So I could prove, I think, what's right and what's wrong by using biometrics. So, and I have tried explaining this to a researcher, well, kind of a researcher over in Scotland. That was our tour guide. And it's so funny who people think who their moral authority is. Like, they're waiting for that person that's right for them to tell them what's true and not, even though you're talking biometrics and science, and they can't absorb it. They're hearing it for the first time. And so I think further research needs to be done on that, and it may be me who does it, but I'll show you just a picture comparison. So you can see, like, you look at the lips, you're looking at bone structure. So you can be somebody and not really look like them, but your bone structure, you have what's called an energy signature. And we know this is true because of biometrics. So you're looking at the shape of the face, your eyebrows sometimes. You could have thicker eyebrows, but it's like where the shape of the eyebrows, your hairline sometimes, which I picked this picture because it's old. It's when I was younger. I wish I would have had my hair up so you could have seen my forehead, but yeah, I think it showed the most of my shape of my face the best, and it wasn't posed or anything. It was, that's why I like to use it. But you can see the shape of the lips. And so when you're doing biometrics, what you're doing is, if you're doing it by hand, and I don't recommend it, and this is why I want to get into the software. I don't know if you guys can't see in this light. We took 3 pictures of, or 3 subjects of my face blown up, and there's tiny dots on the picture, like the corner of the eyes, the distance from the tip of your nose in, the distance from the bottom of your lip to your chin, because you're trying to measure the face structure. And that's what Paul did for me. And then what he does is he takes an average. It's called facial geometry comparisons. And I'm not putting this on the website because I don't trust people, and they could just pull you off your documentation and switch all the numbers and tell you you're lying. And I just don't even want to go there, but I just want you to see it. So I'm not just saying I'm this person. I went above and beyond to prove it for myself that this is going on. So I wanted to share, and you're welcome. I have this nice show and tell book with a lot of the pictures that are going to be up here. So if you guys want to see more detail, I can share with you. I'm happy to share. But just so you see, there's a method to the madness, and that's why we went to Paul, because as from what we could tell, he was the only one doing this. And you know, I was kind of naive back then. I didn't even know. I was thinking biometrics of the eye, like the iris, because that was where my knowledge was at. He was actually doing the face, and I'll share why he knows how to do that a little bit later on, probably off camera, because I'm going to share with you a little piece of information that I discovered by chance. It's going to say a lot by just me sharing it. I don't know if we have time to watch a 3-minute video. You guys tell me I can see if we can pull it up on here. This is a video, it's 3 minutes and 10 seconds, and Paul talks about biometrics with Sherry Lee Laird. She's a reincarnation of Marilyn Monroe, and he very briefly explains how it works, and he uses her identity because according to him, that's the most perfect, the exact match he's ever gotten in anybody. And I'm wondering, because so apparently she doesn't have soul splits, and I'm wondering because all her energy's into that one soul, if that's why she's getting such the exact match that she is. Is that something you guys want to watch, or do you want to go on? Do you want to watch it?
I got 3 minutes.
Okay. I want to keep it interesting. I don't want to bore you guys, so I'm just kind of trying to be polite about this. How do we get the, I want to get internet, oh, here we go. Okay. So is he Microsoft, oh, maybe I do this. Or no, Firefox. I always do Firefox. We'll say no. Oh, great. I wonder if we don't get internet access here. Oh, it says, let's start a new session because I don't want to hit his restore because that might pull up personal stuff. Okay, so. Yeah, I'm really sad that we lost Paul because myself and James and Paul were putting a book together. This would have been his 11th. And we kind of wanted to carry on his work. And he just started getting so sick he couldn't do it anymore. And then we just stopped hearing from him. In fact, I found out by pulling up his name and obituary to see what was going on. And I know he was working with the reincarnation of Marie Antoinette, and she didn't even know. She just heard from me. I'm like, hey, did you hear that Paul passed away?
To find scientific proof of reincarnation, I tracked down Paul von Orden, a Harvard scholar doing groundbreaking research in the field. In his book, The Soul Genome, he presents a theory that soul prints of the people we were in past lives are evident in this one.
What we've discovered from the meta-analysis that we've done of a lot of very strong cases is that the physical features carry forward, the genotype features, also personality factors such as the way a person thinks, the person's emotional state, the interpersonal style, also one's areas of creative interest. We measure those things that we can document empirically. What we found in the first place was there were resemblances between people living today and photographs that we had from their alleged past lives, and they looked very close. They've plotted out the points of the bone structure that help shape the geometry of the face.
That doesn't really change as you age?
Doesn't change as you age. What we're looking at is ratios, not the actual dimensions.
Ratios.
And we go in and take this photograph of Marilyn. We're looking at 6 measurements. One of them is a measurement involving the length of the nose. And then we did the same thing for Sherry. When I added them up, the averages for the differences between Marilyn and Sherry, I got 1%. 1% is the difference that a security camera will let a person pass into a secure area because the difference is within their parameters. I mean, that's pretty astounding. And you could say, well, that's just an accident. But we know that it's not just an accident because we've tested at random photographs of just a variety of people. And by chance, you would be 5%, 10%, 15, 20% variance. To be at that level of 1% was phenomenal.
He's doing
so we know that we've got a genotype match there. So then we turn to the personality factors, and we discovered, the personality type, the ego type, that is the emotional profile, the mental profile, that is the way they think. These two women think alike. So when you put that whole package together, it says that this is one of the strongest cases that we've come across. For any scientist to look at the data and then simply dismiss it saying, oh, that's just by chance, it would be absurd.
The multitude of patients that I helped over 30 years through past life regression therapy.
That's Adrian Finkelstein, Dr. Adrian Finkelstein.
Reincarnation is for real.
I was this close to dying by suicide.
he freed me, and if I didn't learn from it, I feel like I wouldn't be here.
Okay. So sound more convincing now? Like, I mean, now that you see there's a science behind it, it's not just somebody saying, hey, I'm this person. So something else that I want to share really quickly here, but I just want like 5 seconds where this is not publicized, and I'll share kind of a little secret. Is there a way to do that, where we just pause this for a minute? Sorry, I don't need to
I think you have to open it.
Actually, it's open, but we just need to actually. We can mute them. We can mute the microphone.
That's fine. Yep. with. Just keep it in your crawl, and might not be a good idea. You might have a visitor or something, I think. How do I get back to the folder? So let's see, I want, this one. Those are the ones that were up. How do I get back to the folder? Oh, thank you. Okay, so I can just show you a couple other pictures real quick. This is kind of interesting. This is why I think they know who we are. In this picture, the top, they did a reconstruction face of Mary Stuart, and that's another key to look at. Pay attention to who's having their faces done, because I'm asking that. Well, why that person? Well, why me? Why do you have my DNA? How is it that you got my DNA? It's almost like they know, because my twin soul is also the reincarnation of Richard III, and they've done a facial reconstruction of his face too, which I think is really weird. And as we started looking, that's why I know he is who he is, because as we started comparing our cases together, we were having similar experiences. We died the same way in several of our incarnations together. So we thought that was kind of interesting. Both of us have had a reconstruction done on our faces, which I think is interesting. The eyes below are my eyes, and the eyes above are Mary Stuart's. And so you can see how similar. Now, I think they took, this is done from the reconstruction face. They're coming out of Dundee University. I think so is the Richard III, but see how there's like not much skin between the eyelids? Oh, ladies, it sucks putting on eye makeup because I don't have that beautiful gap between the lid and the eyes, but you can see that similarity. You can see how my eyes are closer in. I mean, I don't know, you tell me, can you see that it matches? I mean, I can see it. I mean, it looks very similar. The only thing that I thought, but it could be just the angle of the picture, they made her nose in here very narrow. Yeah. So, you know, I haven't been doing this very long. I couldn't tell you why that is, or, you know, if that should be a concern when looking at faces. But they got the shape of my eyes and they got the color, and I find that fascinating. And I would guess that somewhere in my lineage, I haven't had time to research it, but it wouldn't surprise me because it's very common to incarnate back into your bloodlines. And I'm pretty sure in this lifetime that I am from the Merovingian bloodline. I can't prove it right now at this point because we had somebody back in the 13th century, an anti-pope, I think, that was of the bloodline, and it was a big hush-hush because he was fooling around with somebody, and he had a child or children, and then that bloodline was passed down. So I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to prove it, but one of the things that I learned from looking at cases is you are incarnating back into some of your bloodlines. So just for an example, if you're looking at your great-great-grandfather and everybody's telling you look like him, well, you probably are him. That's kind of the funny thing. So that is a good avenue to look at, is go back, look at your old pictures, because you might be surprised, you might see yourself in there. And if we have time, I'll show a quick story how that happened to me by somebody from my biological family handing me a couple photos and me going, oh my God, there's so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And it's the bloodline that I'm in now. That was my most current past life. That's what ended up being my most current past life, and that's how I discovered it. Someone randomly gave me photos from one of the family members. So this would be a distant cousin in this lifetime for me, was the family I incarnated into in my previous life. And she goes, hey, we have 200 pristine photos that are 100 years old that came out of this attic. And the two photos she handed me had me and some of my other family members in it. Like, what are the odds? So I thought that was kind of cool. So you can see that, and I'll just show this really fast. This is probably the best matchup picture that I found, and I think why is because the photo's blurry. Look at the shape of my ear. You can even see the angle of my nose, the forehead. See the hairline? It's probably hard to tell this. It's kind of grainy, but you can kind of see the hairline on the side of my head is the same. And of course, this picture was done in, I don't even hardly look like that anymore. That was done in, I don't know, it was 26, 27. Which is probably closer in age to that photo or that painting. That's the challenge, are the paintings. And then I'll do one other one really quick. I didn't really want to spend a lot of time on the Mary Stuart. I wanted to get to the Greeks. But I just threw a couple in here. This is her baby photo. This is, I think I was 1 in this picture. And if you look at the shape of our faces, that's what did it for me, the bone structure, even the eyes kind of work. And when you're looking at pictures, look at the angle. But sometimes your worst picture is your best match. That's what I'm kind of finding as I'm working with people, because I try to get them comfortable, because they're like, oh, could it be any of a worse picture of me? And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes that's your best friend, because it's just that right angle that shows it. So
I'd like to ask a corollary question.
Sure.
I think it might belong here, and it's designed to help you flesh out what you're saying.
Yes.
I've actually been making a bunch of notes because I've got a whole lot of things which I'd like to ask you.
Okay.
But would you say, are you saying that if somebody doesn't look like somebody, then they can't be that person?
Not necessarily, because it's almost like I'm finding you have to have a trained eye. And when I'm working with people, even though I might think it's them, I won't necessarily put it in front of people as an example, because people think if you don't look exactly like that person, you aren't that person.
Yeah, that wasn't quite what I was asking.
Okay.
I wasn't saying, if you're not trained enough, or if you don't have the accurate psychometric tools to identify the difference. I mean, supposing they're obviously completely different, like Negroid features.
You can be different races. Yeah.
But are you saying that if it is manifestly obvious that the faces are completely different, then that there cannot be that identity? Are you saying that sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's not?
You do have an energy signature, and the way I like to present cases is the more matches you have in different areas, whether it's measurements, attributes, the more compelling case you have.
I'm only talking about the face, because the face is the body, the attributes of the spirit. It's very different. These are different facets.
I think you have to look at more than one thing than just the face.
Good.
And that's why I say it makes the more matches you have in the different areas. That's kind of Paul was kind of saying that without saying that. He was talking about the measurements, he was talking about the characteristic traits, the soul genome, some of the traits that carry over. And like when I had my reading, in fact, I just got this defined. I had a reading right before I came here because I wanted to share some information on it. I wanted to be sure before I shared it with you. And when they originally gave me all my identities, they gave me my core incarnations, and they never really defined what core was. So I'm glad that came up in the conversation, because I'm like, well, does that mean my documented lives? Does that mean my most important lives? I mean, the English language can interpret words in so many different ways. It's crazy. So core incarnations are basically where more of your attributes stand out, or they have a common denomination amongst them. So like in